Hey guys, have you always wanted to start your own business but haven't done it so far because maybe you thought you were not smart enough or you just didn't have what it took to start your own business, or perhaps you don't even know anyone who started a business successfully, or you just have a fear of failure or fear that this business thing might not be something that you can actually do. Today I want to say that I've been in your shoes. So for today's video I want to actually just share 5 moments that made me realize that I just had to start my own business. Today's video is not edited at all. I want it to be raw. And I've just written down a bunch of things here on my notepad to just share with you guys certain moments in my life that made me realize that I needed to start my own business. If you're new to our channel, my name is Ken. We create videos here to help you on this journey of taking control of your finances, to grow your money, and ultimately one day to become financially independent. All together, we're trying to help you create a life of financial joy. So if you're enjoying this video and if it's really hitting for you, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, because that just helps more people to learn more about the work that we put into our channel. All right, let me explain. Let me share some of these examples for you guys. I'm going to walk through them one at a time. So the very first time that I realized, I'm sharing 5 things by the way. The very first one was from seeing others run a business successfully. So let me give you a bunch of examples in this very first point. The very first people that I saw run a business successfully was observing my parents, and more specifically observing my mum. If you've not seen the video I did with my mum, you definitely should be checking that out. I'll link to it below and above, where I interviewed my mum. My mum and dad are great inspirations for my life. But my mum is a massive entrepreneur. All through her life, she's never really had conventional careers. She had some early conventional careers teaching. She's a teacher by nature. But watching her as an entrepreneur really inspired me. And there was one year that I never forget where she did something that made me realize that I would never ever be able to make this same move as an employee. She bought property, a holiday home. She bought land, as well as make other investments. And when I added up what all these things cost in just 1 year, I realized that even if I was working as a top level, C-level person, and I was a chief financial officer at the time, I realized even if I was earning multi 6 figures, I still would not be able to make the moves she made in that 1 year alone. That for me made me think, do you know what? If I really want to accelerate wealth building or anything like that, I may want to consider starting a business. The second thing that inspired me when it came to watching other people was from my previous jobs. I used to work for an investment company called Octopus Investments, and they're a very, very successful company. I was one of their early employees, and I worked there in the year 2009. And in fact, I was their first black male employee. And one thing I observed from being in that environment was just watching the founders and just seeing that, these guys at the time, I believe they were in their 30s, just kind of observing their daring nature, just watching them, dream big. There's something about being around other people and watching them dream big, but not just dreaming big, but actually doing it. They had this dream team kind of acronym that they created back then, which I really used to love. And for me, those early experiences as an employee, back then I worked as a management accountant, those early experiences were sowing a seed in my mind that, you know what, I could actually be that person, but I still had my hang-ups because those guys were, white males, and white males obviously have privileges that they have. And for me as a black male, I remember I used to think to myself, maybe I just wasn't good enough. Maybe I just didn't have what it took. But that dream team idea, that idea of actually going for it, got sown in my mind. Another one I can think about was for another company I used to work for. I'm not going to name them. And the thing that really stood out for me was one time when I used to work as a head of finance for that company. And I never forget the 1 year where I had to pay the founders. Again, these were guys in their 30s, in their late 30s, I think that back then. I had to pay them their dividends. And I never forget that year because the numbers stood out so much to me. I paid them each £1 million each as a dividend. And I never forget one of them was on the call to his wife, and the wife said, oh, she was about to buy a white Porsche. and it was like payday for the family and that kind of stuff. And for me, that just felt amazing, just seeing that, just seeing, these three guys who didn't necessarily get a first class degree or anything like that at university, but actually living a life because they've worked hard, they've created a business that solves problems for people, and they are reaping the rewards from that business. And so for me, seeing other people, and then the final one I'd mention actually from the seeing other people category was when I managed to get myself into do an executive MBA. And I was in a class where that class was full of other entrepreneurs. And just watching other people in the class, being in that environment where there are clearly people here who are way smarter than you are. But for me, I just felt so grateful being in that environment where I'm able to rub shoulders with these other people. And as the saying goes, iron sharpens iron. So being in that space helped me a lot. And today I'm friends with some people who, back when they started their businesses were not very big. For example, a good friend of mine, Timo, who founded Gusto. It's a good friend of mine. Back when we were doing the EMBA stuff, his business was just, a fairly small business. But today, you look it up, it's absolutely insane how a business like that has actually grown. So for me, all these moments of observing other people have helped me to really gain that confidence and made me realize that, I might be that person who one day wants to start my own business. Okay, so that's the very first point. The second point was the end of careers, financial services careers, was another moment for me. So I'll give you a really practical example. I used to work as a chief financial officer in the financial services sector, but I've got this thing about wanting to always learn from people who are like 10 years ahead of me. Yeah, so I'm always meeting people who are at least 10 years ahead of me and kind of picking their brains and kind of observing what their challenges are. And one of the big things that stood out for me was the careers in my industry that I was working in, financial services, is that I noticed that not a lot of people in their 50s and 60s were actually working at a senior level in those industries. Yeah. So what that meant for me was that I observed essentially that there was a time clock that at some point someone like me will become completely irrelevant in that sort of industry because they would want younger people who are much more able and people who are cheaper. Yeah, so someone like me would be too expensive or even too experienced potentially. Yeah, so I knew that at some point the time will be up. And some of my friends actually are facing this challenge right now. Some of my friends who are in financial services, they know that they don't have up to 10 years left, and that they really must do something else, kind of secure their financial future. So for me, particularly even as a black man, I knew that the chances of me surviving in that career for the long term were very, very slim. So not only was time against me, but also the racial perspective, as well as the position perspective as a senior employee, a C-level employee, and all those things. When you bring all those elements together, the chances of carrying on and still being relevant in that industry was not really gonna happen. So for me, that was another moment that made me realize, I need to build my own table. I need to start to dictate my own future in many ways. The third element that really made me realize I need to start my own business was this idea I've always had around my two P's. The two P's are purpose and profits. Okay. Now I've always had this deep belief, and I'm going to say this without it sounding somehow. I'm not trying to show off anything, but I've always believed that that God's led my life up to now. That's one thing I've always believed, and it's a personal thing. You don't have to believe this, but it's just me personally. So I've always believed that I've got a purpose to my life, and a lot of that purpose I don't actually know yet. And I've always believed that God has set me apart in my own way, in my own unique way, as one of the game changers of my generation. So for me, I've seen a business as a vehicle for purpose, for achieving certain outcomes. So for example, the Humble Penny is one such purpose-led endeavor. And there'll be many others in the future. As I learn more, as I open up my heart to help more people, as Mary and I go as a unit into other areas we've got interests, I believe this element of purpose will be something that will feature a lot more in my life. And I believe the Humble Penny and other things I've done before that and other things I'm even doing now are just those beginning stepping stones for where to get there. But the profits bit's very important because I've always believed that a business needs to be sustainable. And money opens doors, because like People need to be paid, things need to be paid for, and what have you. Opportunities need to be explored. So I've always believed in this idea of purpose and profit. You need both of them. But purpose always leads before profits. I always believe profits and all of those things will follow later. But the purpose to which you need to do stuff, the heart behind the thing, your core why for doing something should always be the thing that drives them. For me, realizing that was a turning point in seeing that, you know what, carrying on in my career in financial services was not really the thing that was going to give me that thing I wanted. I felt like I belonged somewhere. For me, the place I belonged is this place of running a business, solving problems, changing the world, being bold, just literally not feeling bound by boundaries, but literally just feeling flexible enough and feeling daring enough to make things happen. Okay, so that's the third one. The fourth one I'd say is watching the Americans. Now, when I'm not doing this kind of stuff, I'm in various groups. So I hang around with bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers. I'm in masterminds. These are all small groups. Now, the reason and I read people's blogs, and I follow these Americans because I think the Americans have a very different culture to British people, because they're just much more open-minded. And in these groups I've been in, these people are much more open to sharing their income. They're much more open to sharing how they're making money. A lot of people in the UK don't do that. They've got a very scarcity-based mindset. And no offense to anybody, but I'm just saying from my own observations. In fact, I want to know from you, do you believe that people in the UK have a much more scarcity-focused mindset? It'd be interesting to know what you think in the comments. But the people I've seen, the Americans I've hung around with, and there have been quite a number of them for years, by the way, and I'm talking about hanging around online and making friends. These people have a much more abundance-driven mindset, and they're not really worried so much about like butting heads, competition, and almost all this like backstabbing behavior and all this stuff. I've just found that to be a much more encouraging environment to be an entrepreneur. So for me, a big part of what has made me realize that, I can do this business thing. Like, I'm not going to let my disadvantages hold me back. I'm not going to let like the fact that, I haven't come from money or anything like that hold me back, or the fact that I didn't think I was smart enough hold me back or anything like that. I'm just going to go for it. So for me, hanging around with the right people, again, there's a common theme here. Whether it's in my work environment, or whether it's watching my parents, or whether it's in other aspects, or in like these groups where I'm watching other people, or being in spaces with them, for me, being in those spaces with and observing American entrepreneurs and learning from them, seeing them do big things, seeing them do bold things, is another moment that really inspired me to begin a business journey and actually go into it properly. Yeah. And then the final thing I want to share here is the final thing that motivated me, and there are others, but I'm going to keep it to 5, is what I want to do in retirement. So we talk a lot about financial independence on this channel, and you guys will know that we've been on our own journey. I've been on this journey with Mary since 2009/2010, and one thing I've realized, and again, maybe I've always believed God's given me a gift of foresight. And that gift of foresight, for me, one thing I've noticed is that, retirement for a lot of people will be about work, whether they like it or not. So it's very important to have work that you actually love, something you actually enjoy doing, because one day when you've got all that money that you are working for or hustling for, you will always have that desire to do something, whether it's something that's going to pay you or not pay you. Activity helps. And I give you practical examples of this. I've observed my parents. My dad, never forget when he retired, my dad phoned me. He's like, I'm bored. I'm just at home doing nothing. I'm bored. Same with my mum. But my mum had a business. She's got a childcare business that she runs. In fact, it's a family business that we run. But I never forget this moment when my mum said to me, you know what, my dream is to become an MD. I'll just manage all these different departments, different nurseries. Once in a while, I just go in, I check in. I love my mum. This is her thing. She just wants to be able to stop by and check this particular branch of the nursery. How are you guys doing? Hope things are going well. And check that one. But it's giving her something to keep her occupied in retirement in her late 60s. Yeah. Same with my dad, who now runs a food business. Although he's retired, he doesn't necessarily have need for the money because he has a pension, investments, and all those things. But he's got his food business where he's packaging stuff all the time. He's selling African produce. for him, he's got work that he loves, that occupies him and gives him joy. So for me, the final driver for starting a business is that I want something that I will always do, even if I'm not getting paid. That's why I do this, the humble pen. Even if we're not making any money, I told someone this year, even if it's not making any money, I will still do it because it's having impact, it's changing people's lives, it's making me fulfilled, and it's giving me something that occupies my time. I will always occupy my time, both now and into the future. I hope this video has inspired you. As I said, I didn't plan it. I just wrote a few things down on my notepad just to give me a bit of a structure. But I hope you've spoken to someone out there who feels that they have fear, or that they're not good enough, that they are just not where they want to be, or that they just can't do it, or any of those reasons and more. I hope this video has helped you in some way to believe that you can be that person who one day, if you want, because business is not for everybody, businesses are challenging to run, but if you're somebody who wants to one day start your business, I hope you can now point to Ken and Mary, as I'm always speaking for both Mary and I. You can now point to both of us as someone you know that's running a business, and having come from a corporate background and years, I had a corporate job for 15 years, I hope that that background has given you that belief that you too can be someone that can run a business for purpose and profits one day. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. If you really enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, because that just really helps us to continue to grow. And share this video with one other person, because again, it will help to get our message out there to a lot more people. Thanks again for watching, and as always, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Take care. Bye for now.